Hello and welcome to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show on Vital MX. All 20 rounds of the 2024 FIM Motocross World Championship have been and gone. Champions are crowned. This is going to be a very excitable, positive edition as we celebrate our champions, less so the EMX champions, but maybe we'll give them a shout out. Who knows? But yeah, no, the MXGP series wrapped up with the MXGP of Castilla-La Mancha in Spain.
Castilla-La Mancha.
The reason that I was kind of dilly-dallying with the intro is because I was like, do I attempt it? Do I try? And you know what? I plucked up the courage to give it a go, and then I've now been knocked down
Yeah, but
immediately.
you have to because the Spanish GP is in Madrid. The Grand Prix of Galicia was, well, in Galicia, and then this is the Grand Prix of Castilla-La Mancha. You have to say it. But
So
good attempt.
MXGP of Castilla-La Mancha.
Now, in Spanish, when you have two L's, it's a Y sound. So it's Castilla, Castilla-La
Castilla.
Mancha.
That's why have you not told me that before? That's easy. I can do that.
Well,
Castilla-La Mancha.
yeah, there's $45 for language lessons.
Well, it's the MXGP of Castilla-La Mancha, a new track in Spain, the third Grand Prix in Spain this year, and it wasn't exactly the most positive setting for MXGP. Very unhappy riders, but we'll get to that on this episode of the MXGP Podcast Show. Thank you to Polisport, All Balls Racing, and EVS for their continued support, of course. I'm Lewis Phillips, your host, joined by our resident language expert, Paddock Pass podcast man, Adam Wheeler. How's it going?
Hello, you're welcome. Are we being very positive on this show then? Because you said the
Uh,
word positive twice, but
I
then
don't know.
it's
I don't know.
Uh, a riveting last Grand Prix. I suppose it had to be with both championships being decided. But is this the last podcast we're doing this year, Lewis, or will we be doing some kind of retro stuff?
Well, to be honest with you, it kind of lives and dies with you because it depends
Oh,
if you want to do it. So,
no pressure then.
well, I'm always happy to do this podcast. I have a laundry list of items that I need to go over with you. Um, I've got a 10-hour podcast scheduled just on Jeffrey Herlings. Um, so yeah, it depends on you. It depends on you whether you can find it in your heart to grace us with your presence.
Right, okay. Well, I'm actually finishing this MotoGP book in the next 7 days. So my thoughts and energy will be freer. So we can perhaps do some more MXGP content this winter.
I was thinking, do we need to like heavily publicize your book or not yet? I guess because it's nowhere
We,
near
we don't
release.
We don't have to do anything, but I mean, if you want to mention it, that would be lovely. But it won't be out until the beginning of next year. So yeah, it's a bit pointless at the moment. But can we just thinking ahead to MXGP content during the winter? If we can just jump straight onto the Jorge Prado subject at the moment, because we're now talking about a double world champion. And I was thinking maybe he's the third double, like back-to-back winner in the Premier class this century. Because then you have Stefan Everts, you have Tony Cairoli, and then I completely forgot like Tim Gajser in what 2019-20.
Yeah.
He won't so he's the fourth. But anyway, obviously he's going to the US. We're waiting now for confirmation from Kawasaki. And I was listening to Paul Malin and Jason Thomas doing a fantastic job on the commentary. A really good double act, those guys. And they were talking about the strength of starts, particularly in reference to some of the riders in AMA Supercross and Motocross. And I thought, well, just wait until Prado gets there because he could set the new bar. And one thing that sort of prompted a thought of that was how Gajser, that was been one of his weaknesses. Both him and Herlings this year in comparison to Prado, and yet the HRC bikes of the Lawrence brothers seem to be particularly strong in this aspect. So is that a machinery thing, or is starts just down to individual skill and characteristics? But anyway, going off on three tangents at once, my original point was that Kawasaki are going to be having the MXGP reigning world champion in action in Supercross at the beginning of 2025, even before there's a sniff of any kind of motocross action in Europe. And I hope to God that they really promote him. And I hope Monster Energy, if anyone's listening from that company to this podcast, then pull your fingers out and get some special content made, and promote the fact that you have the MXGP world champion in your colors, in a different arena and doing something a little bit different.
This is why I like this podcast. You're preaching to the choir, my friend. You've essentially set me up, and here I go. Right, okay, I'm going to try and tackle everything there. One, I don't think we should rule out the possibility that potentially Prado's starts become less effective with Kawasaki. I think that's
Yes.
certainly not something to turn a blind eye to. Two, you mentioned starts being Gajser and Herlings' weakness. Is it actually a weakness, or is it only a weakness relative to Prado?
No, it's a weakness. I mean, how many hole shots did he get? 17, 18?
But again, relative to Prado, remove Prado from the picture. Are we still calling Gajser and Herlings probably, a poor starter?
Yeah, you have to, because when there's somebody else doing it better, then you're poorer, right?
That's a very, yes, yep, that does make perfect sense.
Okay, so 2025 MXGP has Gajser, Herlings, maybe Febra, Stewart. Maybe he can do something on the Ducati. It could be the most amazing starting motocross bike ever. There are we. Can we expect a really close championship just because Prado is not there anymore? I don't think so. I mean, it's pretty much going to be the same. But the point is, they're not going to have some Spanish kid next to them who's ripping them week after week and giving himself a slight advantage all the time.
Okay. And moving on to the other items on your list, I sought out Kawasaki in Vegas, and I have zero repertoire with Kawasaki, but I sought them out and I said, holy fuck. If you mess up this Prado announcement, I swear to God, I will talk about it on podcasts for the rest of time. This is a marketing dream. Please, for the love of God, please, just not an Instagram post, because Kawasaki are notoriously the worst. They've announced McAdoo, Hammaker, Masterpool lately with not even a PR, just an Instagram video of them talking into their phone, saying how happy they are. If I open my phone and Prado is talking to me on Instagram about how happy he is to join Kawasaki, I will throw my phone at a wall, jump on a plane to Japan, and tie myself to the Kawasaki Heavy Industries headquarters until they rectify the terrible PR.
But the irony is that there's probably nobody in Japan that knows about it.
No,
But
they won't.
it is quite poor. That there has to be some fanfare about it. And if Kawasaki aren't going to sort of modernize and do some sort of fanfare, then look towards like Monster Energy. But then, of course, next GP, I feel they sort of dropped the ball to an extent. I mean, what kind of projects have emerged from motocross lauding the efforts of, whether it's Febra or the Yamaha guys? I mean, okay, I know they've had their injury problems, but it doesn't feel like there's been anything new in terms of projects or content or stuff
Yeah,
sort of emerging.
to an extent, I feel like Monster have almost conceded defeat to Red Bull and have started to lean more on the fact of like, but we did bring an FMX rider here, and isn't that cool?
Yeah, yes, it's a fair point.
Yeah, I have got some conversations to have at Matterley Basin. Right, I am going to extend my stay by one extra day, and I am going to create an agenda and a feisty one at that. But also, further to your point, I do feel like this is okay. Kawasaki took a massive step forward in MXGP this year by adding Sewer because Fevra and Sewer is a really healthy team. But I do feel like Kawasaki globally has been kind of floating in obscurity for some time. And I feel like Prado, from both a competitive point of view and a PR point of view, is a real test, a real chance for them to kind of prove who they are and what they do. And if they fail at this or they fumble the ball, my opinion of Kawasaki will kind of be set in stone for some time.
Yeah, I think the opinion or the perception is that Kawasaki just look a little bit behind the times in terms of their imagery and their kind of promotion. Question for you, Lewis. I mean, if Prado had signed for any team or brand in the US to promote him effectively, which one would have been best?
It had to, well, my first thought is Red Bull of any kind. A Red Bull
Okay.
link would have helped. Um, I almost want to. I want to say, KTM did a very good job with the Chase announcement. They surprised me
Yeah.
with that. Honda haven't really had something to kind of shout about like that in a while because they've just had the Lawrences continuously. Although Jet
Well,
has signed, or Jet is rumored to have signed the biggest contract in motocross history, and I hear that the announcement that goes along with that should be quite special.
Okay. Well, I
So,
mean, he's doing special stuff, but it's a little bit, it's to the side of HRC. I mean, it's not HRC led, is it?
in what way? What do you mean?
Well, just that his, I mean, even down to pick a small example, his Supercross intro videos. I mean, that was something a little bit different where they'd obviously put an effort into the image side of it. I mean, what kind of team or brand is there in the US that makes an investment in Supercross and the kind of efforts that are going on there to, to really push their athletes? I can't think of too many. I think maybe it would be the Austrian group.
Yeah, no, it's sad when you think about it. It is very much either agent led, but realistically, the only agent who is kind of trying to push that is Lucas Myrtle, or I feel like it's athlete led. So maybe I corner Prado about this and say, like, have you been told of a plan? And then who's his agent? It's
Yeah,
Oscar, isn't it?
yes, Oscar Lanta.
Okay. Does he speak English?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
He's very accessible as well, open to stuff. But the reason we're banging on about this is because, he's a double world champion. He's a four-time world champion, and he's moving full-time into the Supercross arena with a big partner like Monster, a title sponsor of the series, and also, a fairly prominent manufacturer. So somebody somewhere, put a bit of effort or a tiny slither of budget into making a big deal out of it. I think it deserves it.
Yeah, and Fox is rumored to be his gear of choice. So you would think that between Monster, Fox, and Kawasaki, someone in the room would be able to come up with something. Watch this
Yeah.
space. I feel like we should do. They do it in F1 a lot. I don't know if they do it in MotoGP, but they do like a live reaction to like car reveals and stuff. If we have the time of the Prado announcement, maybe we should do a live reaction, and then we can just do 2 hours of aggressive content afterwards. But what does this mean? Well, first of all, before we get onto the bigger picture, yes, there has been a long-standing rumor that if Prado won the championship this year, it triggers an auto extension with Austria. There's so much chatter about this that I would be inclined to believe it's true. Even Pit Byra on the post Sexton Championship press conference said something along the lines of Prado's deal isn't done yet. Trust me. Which only kind of convinced me more that there's some sort of wordplay in the contract. But I think that if anything, it probably triggers an option on Austria's side, and clearly they're letting him go because Kawasaki are ready for him. So although I'm sure that it does complicate things to some degree, I don't think it affects the bigger picture. So calm down on that. Agreed?
Yes. And the thing is, as well, winning the title probably buys him a huge slice of extra goodwill to be able to have the handshake and say, off you go, best of luck. I mean, I think it was a little bit of a similar scenario to Ken Roxon. He left KTM for what, RCH? So, maybe it's a similar thing there. I mean, KTM, I guess, could tie him to his contract, which runs until the end of December. But if that's the case, then Jorge's not going to have much luck getting dialed in for Anaheim 1.
How detrimental is this to MXGP?
Good
When we
question.
start 2025, there will be a glaring hole because not only is Prado an incredible talent, he also does have the personality to go along with that. We give Herlings a lot of props for just the way he delivers his messages, the attention that he attracts. But Prado is the only rider, or one of the only riders, who's kind of close to that level. When the gates drop at this new venue in Argentina on March the 2nd, 2025, is there going to be a gaping hole that's almost impossible for in front to divert attention from?
No, there will be a hole, but not one that you can cover up because you'll still have people who are in P2 and P3 from this year's championship, and they're already exceptional. I mean, I think I made a tweet about this yesterday. I just said, because I've been working the Indonesian MotoGP, so God knows what time it was when I was making the text. But to finish second and third in the championship of what, 16 and 15 podiums from 20 rounds. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, Prado had almost 1,000 points. And it shows the ridiculous level of the championship this year. And yeah, the guy who won is stepping out, but you still have these two sort of titans of motocross in second and third. And even if they sort of enact in some sort of duel next year and it sort of is the same as this year, but without Prado, it's still going to be really entertaining.
Yes, agree. Does it point to a bigger issue with MXGP though? Because realistically, we're kind of going back in time because we're going to have a Herlings Gajser Fevre title battle. I don't believe that any of the younger guns are gonna.
I'll count Renault
Renault?
in there as
Yeah, I
well.
knew
Yeah.
you were gonna. Okay, I'm gonna continue with my point, but noted. Thank you.
Ruben Fernandez?
Noted. Thank you. um, does it point to a bigger issue? Because essentially, Prado came up in 2020 to the 450 class as the next big thing. 5 years on, he's now leaving with two world titles, and him leaving reverts us back to pre 2020. We haven't had, technically, there should have been a slew of riders in Prado's wake who also graduated from MX2 and also had a similar impact, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, but it's coming, isn't it?
Is it? Can you say that confidently?
Yeah, the cycle happens all the time. I mean, you still got Yaro Gertz, who had a nightmare year of injury. You've got Lucas Kuhnen. You have, Renault, who's still in his early 20s. I still think there's a clutch of small riders there, small, like junior or youthful riders there that, are nowhere near their peak. So that's something to look forward to, I think. And then, of course, you have the elder statesmen in Febvre, Herlings, Gajser. Sewer on the Ducati is another narrative that will burn bright for the first couple of races, and then maybe again at the end of the season if they get the bike better. And then you have these outliers like, Paul's Jonas or, whoever's riding the standing construct motorcycles next year, or, just the other sort of projects.
Okay, that's very. See, we are being positive. Look at that.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at the race more specifically, it wasn't. It was anticlimactic. That's the best way to put it. Prado handled the situation with relative ease. Great starts. Won the qualifying race to turn the screw a little bit more. Won Moto 1. The only blip was that mistake in Moto 2, but it was really never in doubt. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it looked like Gajser had more pressure to make a result, whereas Prado had a game plan of like, I get out front and then I just manage the race. And you saw that perfectly in the second moto. Maybe before we discuss the races, Lewis, what were your thoughts on the track? Because this was the first time that MXGP went to Cozar in Ciudad Real, which is kind of in the south of the country. I think we could see the exceptional sort of weather. It looked very remote. There wasn't much around, was there? I mean, there were complaints that it was hard to find accommodation. I think quite a few of the riders, well, not necessarily the riders, but people in the paddock were hiring motorhomes to be able to camp out in the paddock because of that sort of lack of accommodation options. The track just looked like a classic track that's barely been used for Grand Prix racing, and they tried to do what they could with it, but it was kind of one-liney and very sort of square-edged. There's lots of kickers everywhere. I wonder if we'll go back there.
Well, we've discussed how interesting it will be if MXGP try to sustain a triple header in Spain each year, which seems unlikely. And if they aren't going to do that, I think Castilla-La Mancha should be the first to go because Madrid is established and Galicia was great. I felt like the track was fine, but the more and more that I see photos, like Lagenfelder put something on Instagram, a close up of the rocks that were coming through, and the more I hear that riders complain, I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't good enough. But I always compare it to La Banesa in 2010, La Banesa, which sticks out in my mind as just a horrific Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And it was better than that. So maybe not by much.
I mean, we have to sort of give a preface here that we can't judge too much, not having been there on the ground. But yeah, what we hear and the comments that I've seen, that it was not totally positive. But I think in the past, having worked in MXGP for that many years, that when an event does or a track has a Grand Prix for the first time, it can be dangerous to judge it and say, well, that was an absolute disaster, because you maybe have to give the organizers or the circuit or the club some time to, really work and create a better track, because we also had like 4 classes again, on this particular sort of course, as the MX 250 and 125 were decided. So that has an influence too. And, the people there have never run a Grand Prix, so they don't know how the lines or the dirt is going to react. And that's all like a teething process.
Explain this to me. So Castilla-La Mancha is clearly quite a remote area. Would the local government have really foot the bill for this event?
I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, was it some rich guy who's just wanted to have MXGP in his back garden? But I imagine it is a regional thing. I mean, that's the way it works, certainly for other motorsport events in Spain. I mean, MotoGP is run through the, Tyrrell and the Aragon, region. You have Catalonia, which is financed by, the Catalan government and the city of Barcelona. Same for Jerez and Andalusia, down in southern Spain. So, it's possible that Ciudad Real, which is not exactly famed for having, world-class sporting events, to my knowledge, maybe had some budget to put away and bring motocross down. And it looked busy. I mean, as you would expect from an event where a Spanish world champion is about to be crowned.
Yeah, as an event, it was fine. Like it had atmosphere, thanks to Prado, essentially. Yeah, I find it hard to believe that such a remote location, such a remote region with, again, very little accommodation, all of that, is footing the bill for an event when they don't really have the amenities to attract people to. But we'll never know.
I mean, if it was an awesome track, we wouldn't have minded, right? I mean,
yes.
Unadilla, is that kind of the same thing where you have to hike a long way to find a hotel?
Yep.
Or even like Budds Creek,
Even Ironman isn't exactly overly convenient.
Right.
Yeah, you might want to book a hotel for that now. Speaking of Gajser, I honestly, there were some flashes through the weekend where I was very impressed, but my overall feeling is I just felt like the bubble had burst almost before the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And
I think, being behind to Prado in a Spanish round is difficult. If he had been 7 points ahead, that might have been a bit different. Yeah, I mean, Gajser's appearance after the sort of, on the podium celebration, his whole demeanor and everything. I mean, I felt so sorry for him because, it'd been an amazing campaign, hadn't it? I mean, you can't ask for a better kind of performance than what he had delivered. And I don't know, but the thing was, I mean, again, on the commentary, a couple of times, Paul said it was a big shame about the broken foot peg in China and, that kind of reverse in points and that situation that he had in the Far East. But then, Prado also had that incident where he was taken out in Majora. He lost potentially 20, 22, 25 points there. And, Herlings, of course, had his technical DNF in Portugal, I think. So it all kind of played out. And that was just like, I think, maybe it was Tim's misfortune to have that right at the end of the season where it looked like he was in a sort of semi-strong position to take the title. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I find it a bit weird to reference that so passionately because, as you say, they're almost all even now. If anything, Gajser's mishap was actually less extreme than Herlings and Prado because they lost a full set of points. Gajser was at least able to salvage something. I'll be interested to... I feel like I'll watch Gajser closely next year because Switzerland was amazing this year. But on the whole, I felt like it was a subdued Gajser somewhat. And I'm interested to see if that trends downhill next year, as in it's even more subdued, or it's kind of a rejuvenation and there's a bit more spark there. I think that's the best way I would describe Gajser's season. It lacked some spark, or the spark that we've come to know from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have liked to have won more motos or more Grand Prix. Ultimately, that was the difference. I mean, what were the points at the end? 10? I mean, 10 points from nearly 1,000. It's barely nothing. But I don't think he and the team can really sit down on Sunday after that race and look at the whole season and think, well, where did we fuck up or where did we go wrong? I mean, I think the level of performance was outstanding. I know, if anything, there is one odd glaring area to improve, and that's on the race starts.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion very strongly that the best man won. Prado started the season as the best rider. He ended the season as the best rider. He led in every category. Prado was out and out the best rider. Yes, at points, Herlings showed glimpses, Gajser showed glimpses, but bigger picture, it was always Prado. This was Prado's season. You couldn't have asked for more from Prado. If anything, it never should have been this close. Obviously, Majora helped that along. This was Prado through and through. Incredibly impressive and a brilliant way to sign off his European career. And I understand why. Because at 23, when you've just won your fourth world title, you're second in the 450 class, and you've had a season like that, what is the motivation for 2025 to go against the same guys and try to replicate the same level of performance? I fully understand the need for a new challenge.
Yeah, Whereas you think, Gajser and Herlings in their sort of late mid-20s, are very much ingrained in their goals year after year. But the thing about the championship this year is that Prado had his strengths, which is good starts and excellent speed right from the first 2 to 3 laps. If you had to say, well, what is Tim's main strengths? Then based on this season alone, you'd be struggling a little bit. Is it just that relentless consistency of speed and strength? Is that it? Or are there sort of more facets there? Because maybe he needs to sort of sit down with the team and say, guys, this is where I'm strongest, or this is where, I'm best with a bike. Let's try and forget the other stuff and work on that. Because is he suddenly going to turn into a Jorge Prado where he's making 15, 16, 17 whole shots in a season? I don't think that's going to happen. So, I think Gajser maybe needs to focus more on what makes him so good and make it even better, if that makes sense.
But does he need to? Prado is exiting stage right or stage left, whatever the saying is. So do you look, if you're HRC and you're Gajser, do you go, he's gone, you were however many points clear of Jeffrey, do this again next year, you'll be fine. But then also the fear of this rising monster that is Jeffrey, and what would he bring in 2025 if, touch wood, he makes it through the winter without an injury? That's also enough to keep you up at night.
Well, I mean, if you want to start talking about Herlings, what does he do next year? I mean, he's British champion, he's Dutch champion, he's raced every weekend for what, 10 months? Is he going to do the same sort of rate next season? Because for me, that's a one-way ticket to sort of burnout, isn't it? I mean, if he wants to sign another contract and do more Grand Prix years, then he's also going to have to start tapering off a little bit and looking after himself physically. Injuries this year, the burn, the broken ribs, twice, I think.
Yep.
They're all extra costs, and if he has a prang in a British Championship, that's extra hard to justify to the likes of Red Bull KTM for potentially missing more Grand Prix. I mean, I think you came up with a stat, didn't you, in the last podcast, that this was the first season since 2017 where he actually made every Grand Prix. He has to do another year of that, but then maybe also put the bar a little higher and think, okay, that title's got to be mine.
But Jeffrey's reply to that, if Pitt or Robert put that to him, will be, I won the last moto of the year. I was stronger at the end than I was at the start. Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, but he was also 50 points off. And also, is Dutch and British championships going to justify that? I mean, he also might say to Pitt and to whoever else, listen, I need to race. That's my MO. That's what I do. That's how I prepare. But then I don't think he's had a full season now. I don't think he needs to do it again. Just, focus on the MXGP and putting all your excellence into that.
I have to laugh because I would almost bet money on the fact that somewhere in the world, Jeffrey is trying to leverage the British Championship to get more money out of Pitt. I would almost bet that Jeffrey has had the conversation of, the UK is such a strong market. It's a massive market for you guys. And I did this. Look what I did. I would bet so much money that is happening somewhere. So speaking of Jeffrey, the penalty in the first moto, okay, fine.
And some harsh words.
But you can't. How did Gajser not get penalized in the second moto if you're penalizing Herlings in the first moto? You can't have one without the other.
Did it look more like the Herlings had made gain?
It certainly looked more like Gajser had made gains. Certainly. Categorically, I would say. It looked like Herlings either stayed the same, so didn't suffer a disadvantage, which is also an issue, or maybe gained 1 or 2 spots. Gajser realistically would have rejoined the race in the bottom 7-5 positions, and he rejoined the race in 5th or whatever he was. There's no explanation for it.
When that happened, I did think of you, and I thought, how much more like 2021 do you want to be?
I thought of you and thought Adam's going to bring this up on a podcast and try to say that this is why Tim lost the championship.
But yes, I mean, is it a good thing or a bad thing that the FIM or race direction maybe take a bit of a sympathy vote?
Honestly, I almost don't have a conversation for this because it is inexcusable in my mind. You either let them both off and you go, shit happens, or you penalize them both. There is no sane logic that I can come up with where one is different to the other. If anything, Gajser is potentially worse, but I'm not calling for that. I'm just calling for equality in these times. of
Well, imagine if he had won the moto and he had to be penalized and he wasn't, and the penalty would have affected the championship. I mean, your mind just boggles at the scenarios.
well, is that why they did it? Because they knew that the
The
championship
sympathy
was on the
thing.
line. And
It
then,
was done post race, wasn't it? So they obviously looked at it and thought, well, Tim's not going to lose. Actually, would that have put Febvre on the podium? I don't know.
well, actually, so I meant to check the rule book. For some reason, Herlings was also fined €650. I feel like this is the first I've heard of this.
Was he? No, I
He's
think he made it. Is that if you wanted to make an appeal, you have to pay that.
Oh, was that what that was? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I misunderstood. I thought yeah, okay, yeah, because he did say they wanted €650 from me. I took that as that was part of the fine.
No, no, no.
Um,
If you want to make an appeal, then basically, if you want the FIN to open the door to listen to your complaint, you have to pay them for the privilege.
Jeffrey's never paying that ever. So that's well done to the FIM. They played their trump card there. But the FIM did cost Jeffrey points because if Tim had been penalised to the same degree as Jeffrey, Jeffrey would have been second overall and Jeffrey would have got more bonus money. Jeffrey
Oh,
loves
really?
money.
But what, three positions? If Gajser had lost three positions, then that would have affected the championship.
No,
It
overall,
was
I mean
10.
overall in the race.
Ah, right. Well, it's 10 points. It was only 10 points. No, no, it wasn't. Sorry. It was 10 points from Gajser to Prado, but then, yeah, it was
Yeah, I
40 or
mean the
something.
race. I mean Herlings would have been
Yeah, yeah.
second overall in the race.
Yeah. And you could have afforded the 650 anyway.
Well, there is that. Honestly, yeah, is it fair to say that this hasn't been like we always point to 2022 as it was not in Front's finest year or MXGP's finest year? Is it safe to say that 2024 was not the FIM's greatest banner year? Let's say
Struggling to suddenly think of other instances where,
France.
there was some control. Ah, of course, yeah. Well, then you also have France in NA in your pièce de résistance. But yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, my mind is drifting now more towards the Herlings off-track incident. And I think his comments there are more about the crap on the side of the track and that affecting the safety by the fact that he was running over cables and whatever else is perhaps a little bit more important than the fact that he got docked three positions and it's hard to maintain a consistent ruling. I mean, how many positions did he gain or he didn't, and compared to the Gajser incident, and was Gajser too far? Because we saw it from the drone perspective, how far too far gone was he to be able to come back onto the track? And also in the context of what's going on, the last race of the year, he needs to get a result. It's really, really difficult. I mean, it's almost like a Formula One scenario, isn't it, with Lewis Hamilton and Michael Massey and all the rest of it.
Oh wow, didn't expect that. Didn't have that on my bingo card for this podcast. No, but if you watch the GoPro of guys are rejoining the track, it's actually quite dangerous. Like Herlings flinches because out of nowhere, this Honda just joins between the banners. Like you can visibly see Herlings be like, ah, fuck. Yeah. So there's a lot to this. But do we want to talk about his Instagram comments actually? No?
Jeffries.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's been firing shots all year, really, hasn't he? He's been complaining about being sent out in awkward conditions. I think it was in St. Jean for that one, with like the thunderstorms and whatever else. He wanted the FIM and the organisers to priority more rider safety, and that was again the theme of the positions being docked, wasn't it, in Spain?
But him posting, I understand every day more and more why many top riders from Europe are going to pro motocross and even tagging pro motocross just to, I don't know what the effect or the idea was
Yeah,
there.
that's not quite true though, is it?
Why not?
Well, what top riders from MXGP have gone to race just pro motocross in the
Kuna?
last 10 years?
Oh yeah, but he means I guess he's saying that you can't compare Supercross to MXGP, so he's using the comparison of pro motocross.
Yeah, but which rider goes out for what, an 8-week series? I mean,
But it
the
can't
sad
like
fact is that
Prado going to America counts as Prado going for pro motocross because it's one of the things he's leaving for.
I would say he's going for Supercross.
But it's all the same.
Mm,
Like it's just
I'm not
America.
sure.
It all gets filed under the category of America.
I mean, you could say, yeah, Prado's going out to try and be AMA 450 MX champion, but everybody knows that 90% of the reason he wants to go is because he wants to try Supercross.
But it's all the
And
same.
I said, no, but no, it's not the same. But which top MXGP rider has left Grand Prix just to go and race pro motocross? And if that's the case, why didn't Jeffrey tag Supercross as well?
Because I don't think
Come
Jeffrey.
on.
I don't think Jeffrey put that much thought into his post. I
Right.
think
Well,
he's
no,
more
I'm just
comparing.
saying, no, I think it's an outdated claim. Like, yeah, everybody's leaving Grand Prix because it's crap, because the track preps are rubbish and we don't earn any money and whatever else. I mean, it's a fact across the sport that the top riders earn good money, but then it drops off quite quickly. And, this is one thing that MXoN always used to still say to this day, we've improved the salaries for the riders. Yes, maybe at the top factory level, but that perhaps was always the case, even though there were maybe less factory saddles back in the day. But, it's the same thing. I mean, yeah, selective selective use of the narrative.
Okay, I didn't expect this to go this way, but
Well, do you agree with it?
I I'm still stuck on the. I don't understand why you're taking such issue with him saying pro motocross.
Because no, the question I'm saying to you, what riders have left MXGP just to go to pro
No
motocross?
one, because it's all the same. I read him saying are going to race at pro motocross as him just saying going to race at America.
Right. Okay.
That's how I
I'll take it that
interpret
way
it.
then. Yes.
I don't think he was
But then,
specific. He was talking about the bigger picture.
all right then. But which athletes, like at the top of their game in MXGP, have left to race in America?
Well, okay, so I'm going to say the Coonans, but you're now going to say they're MX2. So now we're going to get into the semantics of MXGP being the class name, but also the series name and how
No, no, no.
MX2.
No, but it's not. It's not even that. It's the. I think the drift of riders going to the US have been younger athletes who are sort of just entering their prime, such as Roxon, such as Muscan, Dylan Ferrandis. These are not multiple title winners in the Premier class in Grand Prix racing and who have reached a bit of a, I don't know, a plateau in terms of the tracks and the challenges that they've got. I mean, they're younger guys who have also been influenced heavily by the American motocross, supercross scene in their youth, and that was part of their ambition and their drive.
Okay,
Find me a top class MXGP rider that's moved over.
Ben Townley.
Again, a young rider who did one season in the Premier class.
Yeah, but
Wasn't world champion.
but he said top riders, and if you want to classify that top riders, if you need to find a definition for that, you look at the results column. You don't look at age. He didn't say mature riders. He said top
No.
riders. If he said
Oh, yeah,
now
okay.
more and more I'm understanding why riders at the end of their careers are going to America, your point stands. But he didn't. He said top riders, which I take as results based, which takes the Al Coonans, De Wolf, and others into that
Top riders
remit.
using Jeffrey's own definition, because he said MX2 is not the big boys and MXGP is the big boy class. I interpret top riders to be MXGP title candidates. And I
Well,
can't think of that many that have transitioned to the US. Usually because they've looked at it. Gajser looked at it. Clement Desau looked at it. But in the end, Gautier Paulin as well, I think a little bit. But Christophe Pourcel, again, a guy who didn't win in the Premier class before he went,
no, he was
and
in
then he came back.
MX2 before he went.
Exactly. So you file him in the same
Oh,
category as Muscan and Roxon and Searle and the people that did make the move across. But do you think all those young riders they decided to up sticks and go because they were fed up with how crappy the tracks can be? I think that came into it, but it probably wasn't the driving motivation.
damn it!
Anyway,
I don't really have a reply for that.
move on.
Jeffrey, if you're listening to this, I tried. I tried. Just remember that I had your back, and although I didn't do it very well, I tried.
I agree with his sentiment. I think he's got a valid case there, and I think there's a lot more around the outskirts of the tracks that need to be looked at if a rider does run off course.
You know what, Adam? I think that this can be summed up as this is the beauty of the written word, and it's open to interpretation however you see fit. And although
Social
we
media
see things
posts.
differently, we're joined together by our love of the words on
But
the
you know what, Lewis,
screen.
as well? I credit Herlings for speaking up. If he's got an grievance or a complaint, at least he says something about it and he believes in it. There's nothing worse than riders sort of bitching and complaining to themselves or people in the paddock and then not using any kind of forum to talk about it.
True. I'm just looking at the comments now because it just struck me that there's probably some top riders who have weighed in, but only Tixier, Steri, and Jacoby have weighed in. What a group! Real firing on all cylinders there. Really brought out the big guns. I do want to say, once again, credit to Herlings. Always entertaining. Always gives us something to talk about. The wheelie in the qualifying race, past pit lane on the last lap. Bravo. Just that's the personality that I like. I almost stood up and did a round of applause for like 10 minutes straight because that is what I want from my sportsman. I don't want boring. I want flash and slight controversy, but not over the line. Just a bit, just messages, subtle messages. I want intricacies in their performance. That's what I want from my athletes. And you know what, Jeffrey? If you're still listening, if Adam hasn't made you turn off, which he probably has, once again, you have missed such a bloody opportunity in your career to make more money if you just marketed this more, because there's never been a rider with such flair. And
he's still going.
No, but he won't do it. He doesn't think that he can make more money, but he can. He can.
Yeah.
Maybe not as a writer, clearly, because he'll just get his words torn apart. But maybe as a
well, he has to be a speculator to accumulate. Maybe that's the secret. Actually, on the topic of Herlings, Lewis, question for you, because you referenced a qualifying race where he finished second to Prado by like 1 second. Was there team orders or brand orders, company orders?
He wheelies past pit lane looking at KTM.
Okay. Well, I mean, you just said that was a joyful expression of glee. I mean, that didn't seem like
I can fuck this guy up right now, but I'm not gonna. So just that I'm good enough to do this, but I'm not gonna because I'm doing this for you. That's essentially what he was saying. And I don't think that's open to interpretation. I think that's very clear.
Sakamoto, does he pass Prado without the mistake?
Yes. I think that was clear. I think that was I think also he didn't have a choice because Febvre and Gajser, to a lesser degree, were right there. So I think it would have been forced.
Maybe there was a moment.
Maybe there weren't categoric team orders, but I think Herlings was smart enough to read the situation and understand his assignment. Also, let's not forget he is negotiating a new contract. So 100% he saw this as an opportunity to just add another notch to his belt.
Well, there's no need for that. I mean, everybody knows how good he is. But, I thought JT and Paul were on the money again when he sort of showed a front wheel to Prado and then sort of backed off, by almost a second. That was a sign to say, look, get a move on, because he maybe saw that Febvre was coming. Also, Gajser as well was riding pretty strong to come back from that first corner faux pas or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, yes.
Yeah, a lot of layers to what happened in Spain when you think about it. Also, a lot of layers to Polosport, because there are so many fascinating elements to their business that you can take advantage of. One of which is the YZ conversion kit. If you've been riding Yamaha models from 2002 to 2021, listen up, because 2021. Listen up, because Polosport has something that's going to make your heart race. They are introducing the new restyling kit, a complete transformation for your Yamaha, giving your bike a 2024 look without any complicated modifications. This kit includes everything you need: a new gas tank, a full race seat, and an airbox, all designed to fit seamlessly. No fuss and no hassle. Your old YZ 2-stroke will look like it just rolled off the showroom floor. So to all the YZ 125 or 250 owners out there, it's time to transform your bike. Your Yamaha deserves it. Polosport has what you need.
It's a very long read.
Yeah, it is. And that was shortened.
Wow.
I cut out sentences.
Well, thank you to Polosport anyway.
We do appreciate Polosport. Second year in a row that they're on this podcast. And you know what? If they don't re-sign, maybe we don't come back. So come on, Polosport. Keep us alive. Did you see that Febvre put on Instagram that he has some areas of his program that he knows and wants to improve for 2025 to make an impact?
I didn't see an Instagram post, but what do you think he means by that?
I don't know. I honestly pondered this for quite a while. Maybe training. I mean, we know that from Vimon to Strybos to... I actually don't know who he's working with now. I think he might be alone now.
Nobody. Yeah. After Kevin, I haven't heard there's anyone else. But he's always sort of had someone, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he's always had someone, but he's also never been afraid to jump around and like try new things. So maybe just another trainer. I can't think. I, this is on my agenda for this weekend to find out because I'd be quite interested. Maybe some preseason approach, preseason location. The thing is, I don't necessarily look at Federer and note and identify a clear weakness. I just identify the weakness of, as bad as it sounds, he is 0.1% worse than Herlings and Gajser.
Yeah, and also if you have to be particularly harsh, then maybe their concentration sometimes. I mean, there was also one thing that maybe held him back in 2021, even though that's now 3 years ago. So it's quite a long time to reference. But I mean, Roman has the continuity now with the team and the motorcycle, and he should be. If he keeps injury free, he's going to be part of that sort of that new trinity, that new trio in 2025 for the title. And let's see with some of the positivity that Jeremy Sewer managed to sort of find in the Kawasaki in the end can filter into Paul's Jonas, and he can be another decent number two for Roman. Because again, that's something where if there was team orders or not between Herlings and Prado, they were still essentially racing and working for the same brand. And it's hard to see. I mean, Ruben Fernandez might be there and might sort of pop up with a result now and again to help Gajser in 2025. Herlings could have Lucas Kuhnen as a rookie, probably not. But who does Febra have on a Kawasaki? I mean, if Balls doesn't step up, then again he's sort of plowing a lone furrow, isn't he?
Not to not to be harsh here, but I don't think that Federer wants someone to step up. There have been grievances with Jeremy this year. And I think Federer is very much a lone ranger who kind of wants it to be his team. And if someone starts to do too well, to the point where, to your point, they can assist him, it's almost like, hold on, this is my team.
Yeah, good point. I mean, doesn't really necessarily play well with others. I think his best relationship actually was with Ben Watson, right? But that was when they were in different classes, and
yeah, but
yeah.
and I think even in 2022 when they were side by side, I think that soured.
Oh, all
Um,
right, okay,
well, I don't know for sure, but that's the impression I got.
okay.
Um, okay, just I maybe spoke out of turn there.
Well, I mean, there's rumors. There's rumors.
I want to talk about this because well done to everyone in MXGP. It's now been okay. First of all, fact check me. Since Federer in 2015, has Yamaha won a world title in either class? Not MXGP, but they have it in MX2, right? No,
Yeah, Maxim
Renault.
Renault.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So still, that's it though.
yeah.
Still, okay. So going on 10 years, or actually 10 years now. Yeah, 10 years. Two world titles, 20 attempts. One of the most one of the manufacturers with the most investment in a talent pool, racing structure, the support of Monster. Should we be asking more questions? Is this good enough? Do we are we is the media side of MXGP so poor that if this was MotoGP and a manufacturer again as prolific as Yamaha only won two championships in 20 attempts, would they be under more scrutiny? Would there be more questions asked?
I think there's mitigating factors in there. In MX2, Jago Gertz fought for the title like 3 years in a row. I mean, he was clearly one of the best, if well, certainly second best. And then you have the injury problems from, the end of February's stint with Yamaha going back a couple of years. Gertz and Renault as well. Renault's rookie season was very decent by all accounts, and he kept sort of Yamaha up there as sort of a GP winning threat. I think it's just part of the cycle, isn't it, Lewis? I mean, trying to think of consistent Kawasaki Grand Prix winners. You had Clement Dessau who popped up with a couple, Gautier Paulin. There wasn't really a great deal. I mean, it's not like Kawasaki had been prolific.
Yeah, and
Honda even.
truth be told, Yamaha stumbled onto the Febvre success. I don't think they deserve much credit for unearthing that. It was kind of a we have a seat. Oh, you're available. Come on in. I don't think there was a grand plan there to take Febvre to new heights. Um, and then you could argue that since then, you could argue this in support of them or against them. They've kind of been locked out of the title favourites because they haven't signed any of those guys. They took a punt with Sewer. They're taking a punt with Renault. but ultimately they've not signed or made a push for a guy who is like that guy is going to win the championship.
But I will give them credit of having their three-rider lineup because that's the perfect contingency if you do have injury problems. And from Glenn Coldenhoff to Jeremy Sewer to Maxime Renault, there were riders there that could deliver the results. Okay, they're not delivering championships, but I mean, Yamaha's still pretty prominent in the MXGP landscape, and that's got to be sort of one barometer of standards, isn't it? I mean, if you're way off and you're not even making the top five or the podium, then you've got real cause to be worried. But
Is that
I
enough
mean,
to be prominent? Do you think that's enough?
when you're fighting Prado, Gajser, and Herlings,
But then in that
I don't
case,
know.
shouldn't there be a 5-year plan of like, we can't go through another decade like this? So who's coming and how do we get that guy?
Well, let me turn it around on you then. Should Jeremy have left Yamaha because he was their top rider? And how many top three world championship finishes? Because he guaranteed that a blue bike will be part of the MXGP awards ceremony every year. So,
True.
you know, was it a mistake? I mean, it was probably the right decision in Jeremy needed a change, and he was somewhat disillusioned by the way that Yamaha was set up. We can't dispute that. But then, looking at the performance differential and what the equipment that he had, the Kawasaki thing didn't quite pay off.
No, I think that in hindsight, staying a Yamaha would have been a best decision from a competitive point of view. But I think it's now far enough in the past where I can say that one of the reasons why Jeremy wanted to move on is he felt there was such favoritism towards Renault and a lack of respect for what he did for Yamaha. And the inner workings that I'm aware of, I would have to agree. So I think it was more, and I've run into this in the American paddock. A lot of people think that Sewer left Yamaha because he hated the bike and now he hates the Kawasaki and look at him, he's just a nuisance child. But actually, no, he left Yamaha because of, as you
Politics.
said, yeah, politics. It wasn't a bike situation. It was more just trying to find a place, almost find a place where he was wanted.
I think there's too much expertise in Yamaha. Yeah, I think they can be perhaps disappointed with the return that they've had. But then I think you've got to cut some slack with the injury situations for Renault. Yes, maybe mistakes or misjudgments were made for him coming back too soon. But then, you can say the same thing about KTM and Herlings missing a complete season, not even doing one single race. You kind of at some point you're thinking, well, why are KTM continuing to invest such a huge amount in this guy if he's not even on the track? So I think it's just kind of cyclical of this. I wouldn't be surprised really if Renault suddenly wins 5 or 6 Grand Prix next year.
Do you think Alex would do an interview about this?
Maybe you should be more specific for the listeners who Alex is.
Oh, sorry. Oh, right. Yeah, we've got listeners. Oh, I thought we were just talking. Alex Kowalski, Mike Wazowski.
Oh, he got Pixar again. I mean, honestly.
um,
Oh,
um,
you're a genius.
Alex Kowalski,
Kowalski.
the head of Yamaha Motor Europe, came from Rally. How long? He's probably been in the position for what? 6 years now? 5 years?
No, longer than that.
Really?
It would have been just before the Watson MX2
Oh,
era.
oh, what? Which leads
Oh,
us
maybe
into the
even 10
Watson
years.
MX1 era. No, but yeah, interesting
But
topic.
yeah, he's Yamaha string puller, so maybe it is worth having a chat with him. But
It's
also Paolo Pavezio, who was the guy signing the checks by all accounts for Yamaha's race. Yamaha Motor Europe's racing structure is now sort of going to be the honcho in MotoGP.
oh
So I think we talked about this on another podcast. So maybe there is going to be a slight sort of reshuffling in the MXGP program.
no, I didn't know this. So he's moving to MotoGP
Mm.
specifically.
He is replacing the current incumbent Lynn Jarvis. So from 2025, the guy who was really looking after the Dakar, the motocross, the World Superbike element of Yamaha's kind of racing structure will be focused more on MotoGP, which is a different sort of splinter.
So they would have to fill that position off-road wise, right?
Yeah, but
They
then
can't.
that's almost a level. That's a level above like Alex Kowalski.
Yeah.
I hope
So
I'm also saying his name correctly.
maybe he gets promoted, and then maybe I need to dust off my CV.
I don't think you want to go there.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Uh,
think you look good in blue anyway.
no. Also, Paolo, when you see him in the MotoGP paddock, he was not so happy with the sewer interviews.
Okay. Maybe that's
Yeah,
why he left.
maybe. Maybe I come back to replace him. I re-sign Stewart, and all's right in the world.
What about MX2 then? Because Yamaha really are, they used to be the big power players there, but you just need to be on an Austrian bike these days.
Well, first of all, let me just say one more point on Yamaha MXGP, which also
Oh,
ties into MX2. Bonacorsi is going to be the third rider at Fantic alongside Koldenhoff and Bogers. And to my
okay.
knowledge, this is a Yamaha placement. They've kind of got no
Hmm.
room for him. They don't know what to do with him. So, to my knowledge, I've checked this with a few people. It's kind of Yamaha and Fantic being like, let's just put him here for the time being.
Okay.
So
Good solution.
yeah, congrats to Bonacorsi on what is a good home for him. Yes, MX2. So to your point, and we've discussed this time and time again, so we don't need to go too long on it. But the top three in the MX2 championship, Kai de Wolf, Lucas Kuhn, and Simon Lagenfelder, Husky, Gas. Is that good for KTM? Is this a success? Because again, this is the first year where categorically KTM has been outperformed by the other in-house brands. And it must be a headache.
Yeah, and it's not an easy subject to dissect because it's essentially the same motorcycle, a few different components here or there.
It's optics.
But then, yeah, and absolutely. And Husqvarna is going to stay for 2025, but gas evaporates. So it's, I mean, yeah, the number one plate obviously disappears from MXGP. And, will Kai de Wolf run it on Husqvarna in MX2 again? And we still don't have confirmation, do we, on the whole sort of Austrian racing structure for 2025 and who's moving up.
No, I
So,
feel confident. Well, Lucas Kuhnen is definitely moving up. I was told
yeah,
that Kai was not allowed to even talk about it until he won the championship to
right.
avoid distraction. So maybe by the time we get to Nations, we know. Um, I almost feel like if you win an MX2 title, you should move on because look at Adamo.
Mm.
His stock rose, his stock fell. There's almost too much risk. It's almost like being at a blackjack table and leaving while you're ahead instead of sticking at a table and losing everything you won. Because essentially, that is what happens. If Kai now goes for the next 2 years in MX2, say, and finishes fourth and fifth in a championship, this title essentially means nothing to anyone as far as
Yeah, it's
bargaining power
also
goes.
Yeah, it's about timing though, isn't it? I mean, you would imagine now having won the championship, he's mapping out the next 2 to 3 years of his career. If he agrees a new contract with KTM that's slightly kind of long term, and they say another year in MX2, push for the title, put the number one plate back on one of our bikes, or keep the bragging rights in house, then the next 2 years after that, you'll be racing in the US or you'll be on a 450. That's something that could determine the thinking.
True, true. I guess it depends what it depends how stable you are within your place of work, essentially.
And that's also one thing that you know Jeffrey Herlings gets heat for staying too long in MX2. But at the time, KTM had Tony Cairoli winning everything in the Premier class. So why do you want to sort of throw two big dogs in together? So it wasn't a difficult argument because Herlings felt he needed another title after his injury years. He was obviously banking the bonuses. KTM had Cairoli. So, and he was not only extremely good and winning races as slow as he possibly could to win the championship, sort of Jet Lawrence style. But then he was also, ensuring that KTM had sort of double pick of the glories. It makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Fascinating though. I really find they're so again similar to Jeffrey's Instagram post. You can interpret the situation in so many different ways, but I find it really fascinating to see how everyone looks at it because essentially you could have 8 different people look at it completely differently. It's very interesting. Very inquisitive I am with this sort
Were
of deal.
you were you happy to see Kai win like that? Do you classify him as a deserving champion, or do you think this was more a case of Lucas Kuhnen dropping the ball?
Can I say that Kai is a deserving champion? But at this point, there's no doubt that Lucas is the best or fastest. Not the best, because if he was the best, he would be champion. Lucas is the fastest MX2 rider.
Is there not an argument that Kai was a little bit in championship mode?
That could be true as well. That could be true as well. I do feel like Lucas rose to won 5 of the final 6 GPs. Um, I feel like he did
I
rise
thought,
to the occasion and improve across the season to a point where now I think he is, if he starts next year, well, he's not going to be in MX2, but if he was in MX2 and he started next year in this position, I think he would be untouchable. It's kind of where my
yeah,
thinking is.
I
Um,
thought he had a typical rookie season, and then this was showed improvement in every area, and also the fact that he's 17 years old and he's not the finished article. You know that that's very typical. I mean, it's normal of a world leading talent to have made such a step of progress. And the next level would have been, you would assume, a Prado-esque MX2 season and a title. So it's a bit surprising why he wants to jump on the 450 and get into the Premier class so young. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see also from the press release or some sort of press conference, or maybe even ask him, Lewis, in Matterley Basin, why are you moving on to the 450?
well, I think if you ask Pitt or Robert why is Lucas moving on to a 450, they will look at you just as um, confused as you would be asking the question. Um,
Well, no, why not put Adama? I mean, he's a couple more years into MX2. Put him on a 450 if you need to fill a 450 spot.
I think it's Coonan driven. I think it's
Yeah,
all
and that's what I
Coonan
mean.
driven.
Why?
Um, it's a special situation over there.
Well, I mean, look at the Team Belgium announcement. I think it just seems to epitomize, really the bizarre stories and chaos you see coming out of the Coonan camp.
Yeah, I want to talk about nations, so let's wrap up MX2, which on brand for us with this. Um, Nistan Husqvarna is a superb team. They are justified in their position as MX2 champ. Well, not even just MX2 champions. They are MX2 royalty based on how their team has performed this year. The fact that they invested in Kai so young and stuck by him when it took longer than expected for him to deliver, because truth be told, I think everyone expected GP wins and maybe a title to come sooner than this. So it did take a while, but they didn't divert their attention like so many teams do. They invested in Ruben as they felt that was what Kai needed. They stuck by Kai, and now they are enjoying the fruits of that labor. And I think it's a credit to Rasmus. I genuinely, hand on my heart, believe that Rasmus is the best team manager in this sport. I think he has such great perspective from what he's done previously that he knows exactly how to make any rider tick, not just Kai. And yeah, I have not got enough good things to say about Nastar Husqvarna because I genuinely admire what that team has turned into, because it is really the perfect environment for a rider to thrive.
Well said.
Thank you. Um,
Can Before we move on to the nations, can I have one little rant?
okay.
Am I allowed?
Yep.
Yes? Right, okay.
Is it me? It's not about me, is it?
No, it's not
Okay.
about you. World Championship celebrations. They're boring. They produce the same photographs. The people that kind of had these smoke bombs when Kai de Wolf was being mobbed on the start line. Congratulations, because nobody saw anything. Yeah, just sack them off. Forget it, because it's always this big scrum of chaos. Photographers getting smashed. You could see there was even like TV cameras like damaged from the Prado celebration. I mean, there was a time, I think, when that kind of chaos and that, wow, look at the frenzy of joy and celebration was cool. But now it's been done to death. So just do something different, structure it differently, have a bit more of structured ceremony, get some fireworks in there, make him park in a certain place, put people straight on the podium, do something different, because, this whole, having to sort of ride into essentially like a rugby scrum and it all kicking off, it just looks lame, in my opinion now. There you go.
Okay. I am interested to know what you can come up with as an alternative, and maybe I will sign up to that. But at its core, I disagree, because the
Oh,
alternative
okay.
is what they do in America, which essentially is like they haven't won a championship at all or even a race. And so if I have an option, if I have a choice between option A and option B, I much prefer the MXGP version, because all of Prado's last lap, I had goosebumps because I knew what was coming, and then seeing it, and it's no, too much.
But can't you
No,
just have goosebumps because he's going to be world champion? I
well,
mean,
that was obviously part of it as well. But then when he was screaming in the scrum, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. I had a tear in my eye. I was full of
yeah,
the
but just
emotions.
organize it better, Lewis. That's all. And also, when the fans all came on the track, that was really cool. I mean, I remember being there in '08 when Phillip Arts was carried on the shoulders of all the public, in the sort of the Faenza mud. I mean, that was awesome. But then just this kind of like bizarre thing where they just ride into, the media and everyone jumps on top of the riders and stuff. It's been done. It doesn't look cool. And championship pictures are always the same. The images are always the same. Do something different. If you're asking me for a suggestion, 2021 in MotoGP, when Fabio Quartararo won the World Championship, they had a red carpet by the side of the track and a huge LED screen. And there was these graphics popping up and fireworks and everything. And it was unique. It was something really different. Do something like that. I don't know. Think out of the box.
Okay, I support that. And you have also reminded me of a rant of my own. Why are we putting so much emphasis on Lisa getting this interview in the scrum when 2 minutes later she's behind the podium talking to the same rider? 2 minutes later, and we are so fixated on where's Lisa? Is Lisa in there? And then you can hear Lisa because her mic's hot going, where's the camera? Where? And it's like no one wants the interview. We don't the rider doesn't want it. As a viewer, it doesn't add anything because Prado basically was high and didn't know what he was saying. Why are we so? We must get. At one point, I saw a security guard lift Prado to position him for the interview, and it's like, why does that interview matter so much? You were literally going to talk to him in 2 minutes behind the podium.
Yeah, I mean, let him collect his thoughts. He's bound to say something far more memorable and
where's Lisa?
and interesting.
Where's Lisa? It's like, oh my, no one cares where Lisa is. It's about Prado right now.
That's a much more impassioned rant than mine, Lewis.
Huh?
That's a much more impassioned rant than mine.
But it's just honestly, that was exactly my thought process. Where's Lisa? I don't care. This isn't going to be a good interview. I don't understand what the perk of that is, and also, but we do it also after normal GPs where we interview the winner.
Yeah.
And then give it 90 seconds. Oh, I'm here with Jorge Prado again. It's like, oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, the immediate post-race interview again is something that's outdated. Change it up, do something different. Just listen, to wrap this season, are you happy?
Were you with MXGP or on a deeper level?
No, just this. I don't think I have the impression that this is not going to imprint on your psyche as 2021. But
no, it's not.
Did you enjoy the season?
Was it you? Someone wrote that this was better than 2021. Was it you? Pointing now, aggressive. I read something recently, in the last week, where someone said this was better than 2021.
I think it would have been me. I've just been writing about road racing for months.
Okay, well, you are spared. But whoever wrote that was not spared. I was very angry. No, it's fine. I think I will remember that MX2 won't have left much of an impression, but I will remember this as the season where Prado capped off his MXGP career in arguably the most perfect fashion possible, and I'm glad that he got his storybook ending.
I also think it's a year where he backed it up. Where he's that season he had last year, and he went against a fit Herlings. Also an improved Gajser. He backed it up. So I think he deserves immense credit for that. And it's not a 2021 because going down to the final motor of the year where the riders are tied on points is something that you can only dream about. But I thought it was a great season, and to see those three again on the podium was very fitting at the end. Even if you think the FIM should have been a bit more consistent.
I think that as time goes on, I will not remember how close this season was because, as I said, Prado started as the best, he ended as the best. So I think as time matures, I will remember this as a season where Prado was dominant. And the points will kind of become... I think that in 5 years' time, when we're doing this podcast, I will click on 2024 and I'll go, oh, it was that... I don't remember it being that close. That's kind of where I believe we'll be at. No chance you're
Okay.
still doing this podcast in 2020, 30, or whatever, 2029, but we can hope. Right. Where's Lisa? We don't care where Lisa is. Right. Thank you to All Balls Racing. The All Balls Racing Group is a combination of the finest aftermarket power sports brands from across the
Poor
US and
Lisa.
Europe.
Poor Lisa.
No, but this is now I know for a fact that I think Lisa thinks I don't like her, and she's going to take this as a personal attack, but it's not.
No, it doesn't matter. It could be anybody. Get the camera in there.
It's, where's Lisa? Like, yeah, but champion has just been crowned. Can we calm down?
All balls racing.
Yeah, thank you to All Balls Racing. Combining OEM level engineering and design capabilities with a world-class supply chain makes them the largest global supplier of critical aftermarket hard parts for the power
Come on, Lewis. They're going to pull their advertising. Get it together.
Okay, we've got to get to 2029. You can trust the All Balls Racing Group to provide the exact fitment and best quality in the industry at a price that fits your budget. They have everything to keep you running. And I will tell you one thing, All Balls Racing is not a joke. There is no laughing matter there, only glee as you have all of your services desired. Thank you to All Balls Racing, Polisport, and EVS. So we've got 10 minutes or so to break down the nations. More than enough time. First things first, do we know where Lisa's going to be? I'm done. So,
if Lisa had to pop up in a Pixar film, which one would it be? I think we're losing Lewis here.
It's so ridiculous.
Lewis, I have a question. Listen, focus.
Okay,
I've got a serious question for you now. Has the nations turned into a thing where people are being manipulated to take part? Lucas Koenen, initially, Team Belgium are pulled out of the nations because Lucas Koenen did not want to ride in MX2. Then 24 hours later, there's a retraction. Lucas is riding in MX2. Team Belgium are back in the nations. I mean, how does that even work from an administration point of view? As somebody emailed in front to say, yeah, we're not going. Oh, hang on a minute. Here's another email saying we're back in. And then, Team USA as well with the developments there. Cooper Webb, Eli Tomac essentially being shoehorned into Team USA because if he had turned it down, it would have been a horrible look for him. Even if he did have some sort of desire to do it again. So, maybe Team GB as well, Tommy Sell. I'm sure he will have a laugh at Natalie Basin, but then maybe he also felt slightly coerced to have to do it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Nothing you said is wrong, but that is my greatest fear because I almost don't want people to realize this because if people start to wake up to that fact, that signalizes the end of what is my favorite event of the year, an event that is genuinely beautiful in every single way. But it is true. But also, you could spin it on its head and say that Tomac should be privileged to represent his country, and Tommy should be privileged to get this opportunity once more. And why the hell was Lucas Koenen so against racing a 250? He just won on it literally an hour before the statement went out. So, but then also the counter to what I've just said is these riders are putting their lives on the line. There's so much risk involved. National pride is not enough, which is also true. So I don't know.
Also, in the last podcast, you made another impassioned plea for transparency in riders to be able to say what they feel and everything else like that. But if there's anything about this build up to the Motocross of Nations, it's about the forces behind the scenes that people don't realize and the amount of timing that goes on. And, all this talk about Hayden Deegan, I don't think there would have been half the fuss if he wasn't on the podium draped in an American flag and saying that, his colors run with, the particular colors of the flag. If there wasn't that sort of patriotism and that jingoism, then, it wouldn't be such a big thing. You needed surgery. But, behind the scenes, getting the bike sorted, sorting out your timing. Maybe you do have kind of medical procedures to do. Maybe there's a strict training regime. You need to have a break, whatever. There's all sorts of things going on for the timing of this event. you could say, listen, at the start of the year, guys, can you please block off these 2 weeks so we can actually get prepared for, the potential scenario that you represent your country for the biggest motocross race of the year? Yes, granted. But then there's also just all these contingencies, and it's probably not that easy just to make it happen. So, yeah, I mean, Lucas Kuhnen might have had, a really dedicated plan for the 450, a big announcement. We're saying about the Jorge Prado announcement with Kawasaki and Monster. Maybe there was some big thing about the 450 there, and now suddenly he's back on a 250. So I think that does come into it, and people have to be maybe a little bit kind of aware or lenient when it comes to their judgments.
So are you saying that you kind of don't feel like the nations fits into the current landscape, or what is your wider point here?
Yeah, but the wider point is that timing, and circumstances. It's an event that's always open to that. I mean, look at the injuries. I mean, you might have a fantastic team up until 10 days before the event, because the races and the calendar is so packed up. I mean, Liam Everett should have been one of the best riders on that team, especially when you consider how well he performed in NA last year on a 350. And, now he's going to have a whole season recovering from a fractured neck. So it's, I think, on one hand, we have to appreciate, the sensitivity behind the scenes to the nations. That's all I'm saying.
This is interesting. So I'm correct in thinking that there are MotoGP colleagues of yours that are interested in motocross and ask you questions.
Yes.
The nations is such a race that's unique to us. Do you run into people who almost don't understand what we're doing?
Yeah, the nations is a bit of again, and I use that word, an outlier. I mean, it's almost like the ISDE. It's like a novelty thing tacked onto the end of the season.
So
I mean, people
but
are interested
in the opinions of those people, the World Championship is super important, and then they're like, yeah, why would what is this nations thing kind of idea?
Yeah, in true Steve Dixon style, I had a message from him in Misano the weekend before last saying, please, can you get some reactions? This is why I messaged you asking for your top 3 prediction
Oh
for the
yes.
countries. And then he sort of said, can you ask some MotoGP riders for their opinions? I really didn't have that much time to do it. I spoke to Jack Miller, and he's very clued up. I mean, he knew about the Lawrences, of course. I mean, he's met them, he knows them. Also Webster, he was very praising in his capabilities. So he knew the countries, and the event is obviously a big thing, but it's still quite specialist.
Yeah, interesting. I don't want the nations to die, but I feel like every single year we are fighting more of an uphill battle with politics, circumstance, and all of that stuff
Yeah,
that goes around it.
I think it's tied into the venues as well. I mean, we're back at Matterley Basin again, and it might be back in Ernay again. Take us to some different places. I know it's a big event, and it's hard to fit all the infrastructure and the fans into a typical motocross track. But that where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, it'd be good that it's in Ironman next year. And did you see Giuseppe Longo's interview? I think it was in the official MXGP magazine, where he said that the next 5 years of nations have been lined up. So you would have to. I mean, traditionally they'll announce 2025 at 2024, but then I'll be tempted to say, well, where are the other 4 then?
Yeah, I would hope that we are at least going to get a 2026 announcement. I mean, I think we know that 2026 is France. We just don't know what track. And then after that, I have no idea. Because Italy doesn't have a venue capable. And we're apparently in this cycle. Spain, I wouldn't be surprised if Tuchental somehow appears again. I think that was successful to a degree the first time. But we're tight for time. So, predictions. Go ahead. Or do you want me to go first? Because you need time.
I've said already the Netherlands, but then Australia has to be right up there. I'm going to say the Netherlands, Australia, France.
Okay, so I say the Netherlands also, but I say France and then Australia. And I don't really know why. I think partly because it always seems to never go quite right for Australia. So that's playing in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Also, I mean, as much as you could, I don't want to say that being in Europe or the Grand Prix or the European Championships takes any credit for how brilliant Jet Lawrence is. there's maybe some seeds to his technique and his appreciation of motocross that were laid in European tracks and how terrible or how challenging they can be. But I still think the team having to get everything set up for those bikes at that track just for that 48-hour period is going to be the biggest obstacle because Hunter and Jet obviously have the capabilities and the techniques to excel.
I didn't
So
do
yeah.
I didn't do a deep dive on this, but I don't think Jet has ever ridden at Matterley.
Oh, okay. Would have been in the yeah, but I mean it would have been that long ago
Yeah, I guess
anyway.
it's
But
irrelevant.
seeing how well he coped with Ernay, I mean, it should be a breeze. He'll be a moto winner for sure. And then it just depends on the ridiculous situation with the ballot. I mean, Australia could be starting right at the back of the gate. And also, things tend to go a bit weird at the nations. It's not always like the number one nation. If there is anybody that somehow has expertise in profiting from the luck of the nations, it's France.
Yes, and if I look at it objectively, I think Herlings versus Jet. It's funny because I almost forget about Jet as an individual when I'm previewing this. But I think Herlings wins his class, which means he
Is
beats
his
Jet.
record also not that great in Matterley?
No, well, 2018 he went 1-1.
When he knocked off Tony?
Yes. That was also a great season. 2018 was better than 2024, despite the dominance, which proves that it's not the points that make a great season; it's the story.
No, I disagree.
Okay,
There's no way 2018 was better than, because it was a one-man story. I mean, that story was pretty good, but you can't do better than having different personalities and different teams going at it.
okay, I disagree, but that's fine. I just want to know where Lisa is.
Gajser will be good. Gajser will be good at Matterley.
Yeah, and I think that Slovenia will shock a lot of people because between Panzer and Gajser, they will carry them to seventh, and there will be a lot of American fans, maybe specifically, who are like, "What the hell? How have Slovenia managed that?" Norway, the same with Horgmo. Actually, I wanted to give a little tip of the hat. Honda SR Moto Blues, Ship to Cycle, long team name, had Horgmo and Guio 8th and 9th in the championship, which for a very privateer effort, that's impressive, I think. And let's not forget, when they first joined MXGP with Van Horbeek, it wasn't necessarily the greatest laid plan. It was almost an accident that they ended up in the series. And now they're doing results like that.
Well, he was beach racing as well, right?
Yeah.
I think
That's
also
the team's
Hawkman
bread and butter, I guess.
Yeah, Hawkman missed the Grand Prix in Spain due to illness. So I think hope he's going to be fit for the nations.
I think he'll be fine. But he'll also surprise people. He'll be one of those riders where we're clamoring for our programs, trying to figure out who that one is.
Do Team USA win a moto?
No, not with a moto.
Yeah, I mean, Eli could really like sink into like the flow of Matterley and be awesome. But I just can't, in comparison to, how hot these guys are coming off the Grand Prix in Spain, I can't see it.
Well, allow me to I don't know what this means. What's the word for that? Let me just
remove the chip off the shoulder.
No, I'm like giving I don't know what I'm doing. Let me just give myself a pat on the back, I guess. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Someone from Team USA called me on Saturday for my advice on Matterley tips and tricks, gate pick, what I've seen over the years. So,
goodness. Did you tell him it's going to be wet?
I said it'll be fine, which may have been wrong.
Essentially, forecast is not looking great.
I had the easiest question ever, and I went the wrong way, but it's fine. No, I think if Netherlands, Australia, or France win, I'm not surprised. Anyone else wins, I'm surprised. That's kind of the overall theme of where I'm at entering the nations.
Yeah, and also I think I agree with some of our American colleagues that Team USA deserve immense credit, as they did in Nonay last year, just for going. With all the upheaval of getting 3 riders there, I think there's big credit, and this has to be Roger Da Costa's last nations. I think we've been saying it for years, but at the age of 80, well, I mean, Ironman next year is not exactly a stretch. You'd imagine there'll be a queue of riders, wanting to represent Team USA for that one, just because of the logistics ease. But yeah, I think they deserve credit, and I hope they get some better results than they did in France.
I know you've got to go, so can I ask you one question or no?
Yes.
Okay. You obviously saw my tweet about what DaCosta said. If Chase was out and Eli wouldn't step up, Team USA should just cancel their plans. Based on what you said at the start of this segment, do you support that thinking?
If you want to go to win, then yes.
Well,
If you just want to go and take part, then no.
for context, I said to Roger in rebuttal, I said to him, well, what about Justin Cooper? He's fine. And Roger's reply is, I don't want to go and ride around in 15th. And it's like, well, that's a bit fun. Like, Justin Cooper is a tad below Eli. He's not going to put Team USA in 15th. Um,
Yeah, maybe that was an extreme response, you could say. But yeah, I mean, maybe after an A, and that was a finger burning exercise a little bit for Team USA.
is
There was, especially when you have such a strong team initially.
is the is this not what we want to stay away from though? We don't want the nations to be an event where if I can't win, I'm not going because that would ruin it. The
Yeah,
idea
but
is,
that's what it is, though, isn't it? I mean, yeah, if you're Team Guatemala, you're happy to be there taking part.
well, what about Norway? What about Estonia? What about all of those countries? Sweden, even the UK. When did they last win it? 1994. Should all of those teams give up?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone has their own little sort of objective for success, but there is maybe half a dozen nations who can realistically look at that cup and think, well, we can have it this year.
True, fair, and I guess
And
that's
the thing is, Lewis, as well, just to contradict myself completely, that USA is the largest motocross nation in the world, and the fact that they can't find three athletes, which is what I thought when there was all this talk about they're not even going to go, is just ridiculous. So do you go just to have the American flag there, and be part of a fantastic annual event that only happens once a year? If you're a rider, how many opportunities are you really going to get to take part in something like that? Or do you think, well, we can't win it, so why bother going? I think you do have to have some performance goals because it does obviously cost quite a bit and it's a big effort.
maybe the nations just needs a bit of an overhaul from a PR perspective and also a reward perspective. Um, but then again, I don't think you can give these nations a
It's
lot of
still
money.
prestigious.
I don't think they're really going to make a lot of money off of this event this weekend. And not as much as you would think, I don't believe.
Yeah, it shouldn't be about the money. I mean, yes, you shouldn't have to pay or lose money to go, especially if you're competing. But then I don't think you should be there thinking, oh, I'm going to go to the nations, so I'm making 10 grand. I think that's not the point of it, because it's only once, like I said, it's once every 365 days. So, and also you do go down a little bit of motocross history. I think if you asked Eli Tomac that, when he arrives at Matterley Basin, he'll agree.
I don't know about that. I don't think Eli would care about that. That's also the problem. I think more and more riders don't care about that element, which is also part of the reason why we're in this position time and time again, where the nations isn't an automatic yes. But yeah, are we done? Are we good?
We're done.
Okay, well, let me first tell you about EVS, because if you are going to be camping at the Motocross of Nations this weekend, then you may need some EVS protection because it can get quite rowdy. Experience the pinnacle of knee protection and injury prevention with the new EVS Web Eclipse knee brace. For over 39 years, EVS has relentlessly honed their engineering expertise, consistently delivering award-winning knee protection. This legacy of excellence is embedded in every facet of the new Web Eclipse, which represents the culmination of their tireless dedication to innovation and rider safety. Any final thoughts?
No, been a good podcast series again. I think I let you down for one Grand Prix, so I apologize for that.
Wait,
But
you and I will review the nations at some point next week, or no?
yeah, when are you flying back from the nations? Are you going straight back home on
No, I
Monday
wasn't
or?
allowed to do that. It was a whole thing. Thursday, I leave
Oh
the
wow,
UK.
okay. Well,
Yeah,
well, you've got friends and family to see. That's all right.
it's just it's a lot. Um, um,
Well, well, I have to work. One reason why I'm not going, we covered this, didn't we? I got the book, I got the Japanese MotoGP, but I will. I'm not traveling again now until the Grand Prix of Thailand in a couple of weeks. So yeah, if you want to do a wrap, then yeah, let's speak next week.
Okay, sounds good. And we will definitely be back in the off season because I will not let Adam get off that easily. Thank you to Polosport, thank you to EVS Sports, and thank you to All Balls Racing. Thank you to you people for listening to this across all 20 rounds of the 2024 FIM Motocross World Championship. Congrats to Jorge Prado, congrats to Kai de Wolf, congrats to all of the winners and everyone on a superb season. Thank you for the entertainment. We will see you real soon with another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show.